Hi, Clive. Thank you for joining us today. And it's a real pleasure to have you at Premier Talk. Thank you for accepting our invite in such a short notice. And we will chat all about Ensemble Festival coming to London on Saturday, 25th and 26th at London's
Yep.
historic Royal Victoria Docks. Now in its seventh edition, it comes for a full 2 days of fun, thought-provoking, bold work, and it's outdoor, it's free, and it's for all ages. And we are really
Yep.
looking forward to it. So please, Clive, over to you. If you please talk a little bit about yourself and the festival to begin with.
Okay, I'm Clive Lyttle. The organisation I'm from is Certain Blacks. The festival is Ensemble Festival, and Certain Blacks, we are an arts development organisation. We're based in east of London. We're actually based in Royal Docks. I live very close to Custom House, and we are supported by Arts Council England to put on new work. We term ourselves as an arts development organisation. We do two festivals a year. Ensemble Festival is our big outdoor festival, and then we do an indoor festival in the winter as well. But Ensemble Festival, which is coming up, it's completely free, and it happens in Royal Victoria Docks.
Fantastic. If you tell us a little bit about the lineup and how do you sort of, what's the trigger in choosing, certain kinds of acts and how do you sort of give them that platform?
We are an arts development organisation. So what Certain Blacks does is we try and make space for diverse artists to make the work that they want to make, rather than what is deemed. So often, as a black person, I was pushed into making work which was about my blackness or about my identity. We try not to do that. We try and make work or support work which artists can make, which is just about them engaging with the world, talking about themselves, and being good storytellers. Half of the program, we work with a national network called Without Walls. Without Walls includes like Brighton Festival, Norfolk and Norwich Festival, Stockton-on-Tees International Festival, our neighbours Greenwich and Docklands Festival, the big boys, and then us. We're the small boys in it, and we're part of what's called the Artistic Directorate. And what we do there is each year we do an open call for new work, and we commission new shows. So out of our program, we've got Fernando and Bernstein doing a show called Sticks and Stones, which is an old school outdoor performance which talks about space and where we are. That's one of our commissions. We've got a company called Nigel Kobe Taylor doing a show called The Torch, which is about his background and his grandfather and how he was such a big African musician and how you live in terms of somebody else's success. And that's another one of our direct commissions. We've also commissioned a show which is Daughters of the Wire, which is like a high wire act, which is all women doing a high wires. And it's not usual in the sector, in the circus sector, it's not usual to have all-female sort of program. Also, with our Without Walls program, we've got Garb, and I'm going to really mispronounce Shimmy Denti and Maria Salette, and that's a South Asian dance. It's been influenced by Kathak and traditional South Asian dance, but it's also about the land. There's a lot of sand that's going to be involved, and there's going to be a lot of very visceral things within that show. And we're lucky enough to be working with Talawa Theatre, who are I think they're in their 50th year this year, and we're doing a show called Fragments of Us with Talawa, and that explores how black people and black men are perceived in public spaces and whether they should or shouldn't be there, and how you can get a cop in the head sort of thing. And they are the sort of five shows or some of the shows that we've done with Without Walls. The rest of the program, we've got three shows that are coming over from Catalonia, and we've got a partnership with Institute Ramal Lowell to bring over three shows from Catalonia. And they are going to be Teatro en Momento Calgex. I really pronounced that wrong, but sorry if I did. But it's Water Silhouettes. I'm really looking forward to that show, and that's a show about recycling. We're trying to find about up to 400 plastic bottles, which shows about how we use bottles and how it's disposable. We've got a brilliant show which is Nacho Flores show called Dante, which is it's a bit Don Quixote. It's a bit railing against the world, and it's a bit of a natural life of music inside a mad world. And then the other piece that we're bringing over is Chris the Clown, and that's going to be brilliant because Chris the Clown is going to appear in unusual spaces. Basically, she's going to be appear hanging from a
Mm.
space if you can find her in the festival.
Wow.
So she's coming over as well as part of the Catalan program. And then the rest of the program, we've got two other shows. We've got Mr. C from a guy called Cormac, who's coming over from Ireland, who has been brilliant, and I've seen him a few times. And then we've got Brainfalls doing a show called Balance, and they're our London show. So it's from all over the world, and we try each of those shows as something that we're trying to support and develop, rather than
Wow.
just we don't buy stuff off the shelf.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You stepped aside with a vibe I ain't never seen. Yes, you did.
1, 2, 3.
That's a huge variety and a very, very diverse, big lineup. I mean, there's a lot to take in for the audiences across the 2 days. So I think you've said that the theme that you're exploring this year is around identity, ritual, ecology, and collective experience. So
Yep.
how do you come about with a theme every year, and what was the trigger for choosing this kind of a theme this year?
It's come about more organically through some of the shows that we've managed to choose. Some of the conversations we've had with people like the Taylor Fit, where we're talking about collectively how we take up space now we're seen in space. And shows like Chris the Clown also come across about how it's that we're always questioning about how we use public space collectively and how we can own the space. Now, I live locally as well, so I live very near the Royal Docks, but I'm also part of a European network which is called Circus Strada. And part of Circus Strada, which is lots of festivals that do street arts and circus, we've been looking at placemaking and how arts and using space and reclaiming space can give local communities ownership of space. So that's really come through with how we've looked at the theme, and all these bits and pieces have come together and joined that theme. And a lot of it is about taking ownership of space as a community.
Lovely. Coming to the public space bit, you program in public spaces. So
Yeah.
what does it really mean to bring marginalized artists to these public spaces? And I mean, how do audiences sort of interact, with
It,
art in spaces where they least expect it to be?
it's really interesting. So in the Royal Docks where I live, it's if you ever come to the area, we're separated by the train line, which is the DLR and the Elizabeth line, and half of the community lives outside of that train line, which is just the usual housing estates and that. But there's a lot of the community. There's a lot of activity that happens in the Royal Docks, which is curated. You've got the Excel Centre, and a lot of people just don't cross that bridge. So part of our job is to get people to cross that bridge and come and see the work and feel that they're at home. And you've got a lot of big events that happen in our space. So we've got like T1000, which is the triathlon. This weekend they've got North Face rock climbing and stuff. So what we try and do is within that is put some art in there, which is not about the corporate stuff. It's not about the big London Marathon who run the T100. It's more about bringing arts to the people. So that's what we do. And when you see the bigger corporate guys doing that, you feel we really want to be able to, like just put some circus on and put some stuff on which is there for free and it's not ticketed.
Yeah, lovely. So, yeah, and it has gathered momentum over the 7 years, and
Yeah.
it's made its own space. It has created that noise. So, my next question to you would be your festival for foregrounds artists who challenge identity, difference, and care. What responsibility do festivals have in shaping cultural conversations rather than just reflecting on them?
I think it's essential, and it's essential, especially we talk about at the current moment, when a lot of things, especially as a diverse person, you're not always feeling safe when you're in public spaces. You don't always feel like you own public spaces. If in parts of the country, and I will say things like Northern Ireland, as a person of diverse, you're very much being made to feel that you're not from around there. And one of the things that we do, and we do it in a program, I'll give them an example of I went to a friend's. I went to another festival, which was in a seaside location. I'm not going to name it, but another festival, really lovely.
Yeah.
They got some international artists over that came from Norway, and they were trolls. But the Norwegian depiction of trolls were like blackheads, so it looked like there were blackheads on a pole. For me, if I saw that I saw it in a public space, it freaked me out. And so I talked to the organisers, and I talked to colleagues I've got in Outdoor Arts UK, and it was a cultural misunderstanding. It was, they were saying in Norway that's fine, these are trolls, that's what we use, and I'm just saying in the UK, when you've got a diverse community, and you've got to remember you've got a diverse community there, it doesn't work that same way. So what we're trying to do is we're very clear about what we do program, what we won't program. We won't do caricatures. We're very careful about things that can be taken to be seen as wrong, because as a person of colour, I've seen it before. I mean, an example I can give is when I went to uni, and there was an exhibit of monkeys in Phoenix, wind-up monkeys. It was a few. It was a bit of a time ago, but I had young kids pointing at myself with their parents, going, "Oh, look, there's a monkey." And from that's put in my head how important cultural representations are, and the correct cultural representations are, to get those ideas across and to challenge some of the pre-ideas that people have.
True. So yeah, so it's really looking at those sensitivities and handling them with care is what is
Yeah,
required. Yeah.
and also putting over positive outlets. I mean, the Tallow Theatre piece, Fragments of Us, is very much about challenging those preconceptions and saying, it might not be what you think. So the positive role representations as well.
Of course, of course. So when you talk about, festivals and your kind of engagement with so many different kinds of festivals, melas, outdoor acts, you have adopted, festival engagement much before I think it was like around and it was a thing. So
Yeah.
what have you seen shifting in the landscape since your association to now?
The shift is a lot more about asking audiences what they want and who they are. Literally, I've just popped out from a session where we're talking about audience data and audience surveys, etc. When I first started out, and I used to, you're right, I used to be involved with Mellors. I used to do the Newham Mellor way back when in the 90s, and I'm still in Newham, but based here, so I've got a long history. We thought we knew our audiences. We just sort of go, right, we'll put this on, we'll put that on. You had quite a vocal audience, a vocal community that would be feeding back. We don't have that so much now. So we have our community, but we can't assume that we know our audiences. We always want to know who's coming to see us. We always want to know who's coming to see us from locally, and who's engaging with us from a more wider area. And we also, things like we support, we go out of our way to support things like access to our festival. So on Sunday, if you come along to the Ensemble Festival, we've got an accessibility day. So we've got people that are going to be signing shows, we've got subtitled shows, we've got touch tours on the thing, all of that sort of thing, a whole day which is aimed at our disability audience. We wouldn't have been doing that in the past. We sort of put the show up there. It's more about being concerned and making it possible for all types of people to come to the festival.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I think sensitivity works both ways. So just as artists, we want organizers and audiences to handle our, sentiments when we are presenting with care. We want to do the same to our audiences and,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
understand what appeals and what would really give them that thought-provoking content. So I think that is
Yeah.
what we're coming to. Now, really coming to you and your career, you have spent almost 2 decades in the Arts Council. And if you just tell us a little bit about what you think, how institutions support these festivals, which are from more of a diverse group of artists. So what has been like through your
It's a really good point. As I said, I worked for Arts Council for 17 years. It's a really good organisation. It's really supportive. But as I said, I think there's a lot of a way to go. It's telling that now I'm outside of the organisation, because one of the things that I said is what we try and support artists to do is to make work that they want to make, rather than the work that people get perceived that they should make. And you'll see, I think the Arts Council have just done a big report on South Asian dance. And in that report, you can see how people are reacting to how South Asian dance used to be pushed into a box to say, well, you've got to make this work like this, or it's going to be contemporary like this, or what you're making is just traditional, so we won't fund it. And it's going, well, what do you want us to do? We've got to change the way we do stuff to get your money or not. And what we try and do is make the space for the artists to make the work that they want to make, rather than jump through hoops to get that funding, to get that support. Don't get me wrong, it's really good. And the Arts Council go out of their way to try and support the diversity and diverse work, but it's that the self-censorship and self-perception that often goes on with those funding decisions and some of those things that we try and challenge to get that new work made.
So are we then safe to say that diversity is not merely just a tick box at the moment? There is more happening.
Oh, it's got to be away from. I think we've only just started that whole diversity thing. I think we've only just started to see artists that are being able to make the shows that they want to make with the current Without Walls program. We've got a show which is an artist called Vidya, working with traditional South Asian dance and pottery, but she's been working to make a show called Holy Dirt, where she's worked with David Glass. And David Glass is, one of the big contemporary movement actors and directors and stuff. And it's been a great journey to see how that's worked with the look of mixes of culture, with some of the looks where it looks like old Fritz Lang films and the visual stuff. The mix is brilliant. But there's always been that argument to say, it happened years ago when I first put a David Glass show on, and a diverse was meant to be a diverse theatre. It's like, why are you putting that work on? We want to put good work on. It's about the quality of work rather than just being in a box about, oh, this is diverse.
So we are seeing genuine structural changes, are we? So
yeah, and a lot of artists have been, up from Khan. A lot of artists have been supported to make the work that they want to make in Dance Pod Blue. We work a lot with the Place, and the Place have been doing outstanding work with developing diverse dance. So we worked on a show called Ronin in our last festival this year, which was a mix of Japanese martial arts and sword fighting and dance and 3D projections. It was brilliant. It was really nice. Again, from that cultural thing, mixing that culture with modern technology, it was great. So things are changing, and the work that people were able to make is changing as well.
That is brilliant. I mean, that makes us really hopeful. And we want to see more diverse work happening. I mean, it is happening now, and I'm sure we are on that right path, and we'll get there. So what was that moment, Clive, when you decided to step out of the organization and create Certain Blacks? I mean, what made that happen?
It was the story, and I've just told this, the story. When I was working at Arts Council England, I used to work on a program called Decibel. It was an artist showcase. I was part of the selection committee for the showcase, and it happened every 2 years. It's biannual. It was aimed at venues. It's like business to business. Really good. It was really just getting off its feet. 2011, and Arts Council went, great, we've done that. We're going to not do it anymore. So as you said, tick box, no more diversity. We've done that. That's really good. And I had a lot of my friends that knew I worked for Arts Council England, knew that I worked on this literally on Facebook, it's more on Facebook than anything else, going, what are you going to do, Clive? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And it got to a point where I initially tried to get Arts Council funding myself, and I failed. And so I funded my first gig with a little bit of money I had left over, well, I had from selling a house, about 10, 15K, went into our first productions. We did it over
Wow.
in Newham. So we're very Newham based. We did it at Stratford Circus. And that was the start of Certain Blacks. I went on, got smaller grants, etc., etc. And as we went on, the need for putting on diverse shows, putting on that sort of showcase, developing new work, we've got more and more. I got support from Arts Council through a program called Elevate, which is really good, that helped Certain Blacks really form. And then in 2023, we became an Arts Council funded NPO, and that's it. I left to do this full time with Arts Council funding, and there's always, been shown that the fact that we do two festivals a year shows that there's a lot of demand for that showcasing of the diverse work to support.
Well, congratulations for the NPO. That's a real biggie. I mean, that kind of forms the support and the skeleton, I guess, for so many organizations to do good work like you are doing. Now, your organization's name, Certain Black, comes from the Art Ensemble of Chicago. Now, how does jazz, improvisation, risk-taking, political charge influence your curatorial decisions?
So my background is a jazz musician. That's where I started. Well, to be quite honest, my background was a pop rock musician that ended up, I went to university, got a degree, came out as a jazz musician. And part of that I've always had is jazz is the first place, along with things like punk and rock against racism I was in. Jazz is the first place where you see black consciousness and black rebellion. And people look at jazz and they think, well, no, you look at John Coltrane and you think, that's not rebellion. It is, because that music, it's deliberately made so that not everybody can play it. It's very much a black thing. It's very much bebop and modern jazz. It's something that you learn. It's academic. If you look at all the Duke Ellington, if you look at Miles Davis, if you look at all their approaches, they're all quite intellectually based in that music. And Art Ensemble with Chicago was the three guys, and the name of Certain Blacks, it comes from a song, and the songs were Certain Blacks do what they want to, do what they want to, Certain Blacks go wild, yeah. And then it goes into free jazz.
Oh, brilliant. Can you sing a little bit more for us, please?
Like, Certain Blacks, do what you want to, do what they want to, Certain Blacks go wild, yeah. And it's and it was a song put together. And the guy on it is a guy called LT Buchan. And we have since we've become Certain Blacks, LT reached out to us, he emailed us, and he was from Art Ensemble Chicago. And it took a bit of emailing again, you sure. But in the end, we managed to get LT over, and we did a blues night with LT and some of our musicians. And then the year after, we've done work with the Catalyst collection, and they're all part of this same Chicago music co-op that Art Ensemble Chicago have gone on. And I was lucky enough that I got to actually play with the Catalyst conversation, So they are really nervous, but I got to play some jazz stuff as well. So that connection with our jazz, we still put jazz on, and we still present it. And I think that whole idea of form and improvisation really does influence the way I look at things like circus, theatre. I've started to look at things like playmaking. At university, I also did some theatre making, so I looked at Brecht and stuff like that. So I've got that background, but I've also been looking at things like Chekhov and stuff. And the way that if you give things a form to then have an expression, that's what jazz does, that's what plays do, that's what the theatre does, that's what circus do. And it's that idea of having good art but giving it expression. I think that's what I take from that jazz as well.
Yeah. So would you say that Certain Blacks is a part of a lineage of Black avant-garde resistance? Would you say?
We would. That's a really good one. When we were younger, when we were at university, you had young black artists, and oh God, I've forgotten. Sonia Boyce was coming through. Ingrid Pollard, who I've worked with, was coming through. All of those artists were artists that we were then at university find out about, and they weren't being taught, they weren't there. So our lineage of certain blacks and their form is very much associated with that 70s, 80s, 90s black arts movement, and we were very aware of that. So as I said, we don't do visual arts, but the visual artists have been the people that have been performed before us, and we've been lucky enough to work with Ingrid Pollard in the past. So we still see ourselves very much as based within that, even though we work in performing arts.
It's really interesting, connecting those dots between the company, the name of the company, the interests, and the politically charged landscape that sort of brought it about. It's just joining those dots. It just gives you the whole narrative as to where we are, how we are today with certain blacks. That's really interesting. Now, I would really come back to a little bit of a personal touch, your personal journey. There's a little quote that I found on the press release, and it really, really appealed to me. I'm just going to read the first two lines, which says, I was recently asked, so you are saying it's your quote, I was recently asked by a group of young black men where I was from. Are you from Somalia? No. Are you from Jamaica? No. So you think you're British. Why? You aren't from here. And to that you said, I was born in Lewisham Hospital, the same place my mum worked all her life and where she died. So this is where I am from. So, I mean, that was really touching. And to that, I would just ask you, when those young men asked you, so you think you're British, what did that moment reveal to you about how Black British identity has shifted across generations?
It's young men. They were young Somali men, and it's when I was growing up, it was all okay. We'll fit in. There was areas like Brixton and that where we know we'd hang out, but we were very conscious of ourselves as being okay, part of that colonial thing, but being British, we were invited. We're meant to be here. As I said, my mum worked in the NHS all her life, all the way through her life. Lewisham Hospital was a big thing. So being part of it, being born in it, the whole sort of health service stuff in it, and the things that made Britain great, my mum being part of it. Before she died, she spent a lot of time talking about that and how she was frustrated about not moved up the ranks more and being more within a personal career. The low level racism in that, so she knew she was in a fight, but she wasn't going anywhere. And I buried my dad. I've been to Jamaica. I'd love to have tighter ties. My brother's there. I've got my brother in the US. So we are a world family, but this bit of the world family is from Britain. And if you ask my cousins, they'll go, "Oh no, but you're British." If I go to Jamaica, they'll go, "No, you're British." You know what I mean? So it's not just us. It's the Jamaican diaspora, and it's our cultural diaspora. My cousin won't go, "You're not Jamaican," and my nephew over there in Atlanta, Georgia, goes, "You're not Jamaican." So, you know what I mean? So it should be a pride of how we're seen, and it really got to me that these young people don't have it, and it made me really question, because what has happened to them in a country that they were born in and brought up to make them feel other? Do you know what I mean? You come, you work, is it from where you are? Is it because you're not from a former British colony? How does that work? You're just from one that has been, it was an Italian colony. It's still a former colony. That whole debate, I don't think is happening. And these young people become other because they don't have any other choice. This is where the local gangs come in. You've got the postcode things, all of that. People making those communities because they're not allowed to feel welcome. And I think that's worrying.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I see where your thought comes from when you talk about, Black British identity and, so If I may ask you, how has Lewisham or the geography or the place you've grown up in championed, your journey into the arts and your work that you're doing today? So what is the connect between Lewisham and, that part where you grew up?
Um, Lewisham is, if you take the borough, Lewisham's got like a heart of music. There's a
Yeah.
lot of reggae that happened around there when I was growing up. In depth, a lot of people had sound systems and that, and then we sort of went from that background into doing punk and stuff. I was just talking to somebody about doing Rock Against Racism in Brockwell Park. Doing all those different events there. I mentioned things like Brixton and things. Growing up with your cousins or your brother's sound system and stuff. That was all a big part of London and South London living, along with being fortunate enough to have places like the Albany. When I was growing up, the Albany used to have the Albany Connection, and they also had a touring theatre. So my first touring theatre that I saw was in a school from Albany Connection in my school, and suddenly I went, "Oh, maybe you could do this as a living," And I like having venues like that. It was more the guitar playing. They had guitars, they had theatre. You got a lot more of that theatre, a lot more of that community theatre. The Albany was a big place growing up, and that was always the place where I wanted to play. And then once you get to play the Albany, where do you go from there? But having that sort of community vibe as a presenting venue, and there was loads of stand-up comedy places, Vic Reeves and stuff, who people know nationally now, were all doing stand-up comedy and all of this. So there was a lot of stuff that was happening all around Lewisham, Deptford, and things.
That kind of developed your mindset into the art and
Yeah,
what you're doing today.
yeah,
So
yeah.
do you really feel that the arts sector truly understands the complexities of Black British identity, or does it still kind of flatten it into like a simple narrative? I mean, your
Yeah,
last thoughts on that.
it's the second one. Simple narrative. The things that can be seen, we can take to be diverse. We'll take on, and anything that challenges it. It's an interesting play, Barbershop Chronicles, which is there. It's interesting, but to me, it's like 20, 30 years old. It sets all Black people in a barbershop, African barbershop. It's around football, etc. Great, seen it. I have then seen a version of that has been done in French in Belgium. I saw that I talked to the guy that's doing it. I was on a trip to Japan, and I was gobsmacked, because you're taking something which culturally I'm sure shouldn't really is 20 years out, and then you're re-putting it in another cultural context and saying, "Oh, we did it with Congolese Black people and stuff," and people will jump on that because it's easily seen as to be Black and it's export. If you do something which is more challenging, which is more about the work you want to make, it's harder that people won't buy it. We're working on different shows about. I'm working on a show about assisted dying now, which is a lot less fun than a barbershop thing, and it's got a lot of interest, but it's not the sort of thing. We're working with a company called Crying in the Wilderness to develop that show. It's called Best Friends, and it's very different from the work that people expect us to make. So we'll keep trying to support people that are making that different work, rather than the things that will keep perpetuating those caricatures.
Of course, that is so important. I mean, to keep supporting and keep trying and keep continue on that journey. And I think, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's something, and there's also, the saying that piece of work that I mentioned, it was an important work at the time. It's good, and the writer does loads of stuff. But to me, I've still got to mention it as it still keeps me in that box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are getting there. We are working towards it, and we will make it. So before we go, I mean, we are a little short of time now, so we'll have to wrap this up. I mean, I could have listened to you like all day today. I mean, so interesting.
Oh, thank you.
To understand your journey, where you came from, where you are today, and the kind of support you're providing. And, the arts sector really needs mentors, leaders like you. So thank you so much for bringing certain Black.
Oh, thank you.
One last question, or really a message to your audience before you go.
God, it's keep on doing it. keep on trying, keep on making the work, keep on putting those grant applications in, keep on knocking on our door and everybody else's door, because the only way it's going to change if everybody keeps on trying to make the work, if younger people keep on doing it, which we're happy to support, and don't just give up. So it is so easy to give up making it, and it's only the people that work on it, try and make a difference. I mean, the big one, Ezra Collective, which have been drawn out of Tomorrow's Warriors, which is Gary Crosby and Gillian Irons and that. If you look at the work that those guys do, those young guys do, with that jazz tradition, and I saw an interview with somebody asking, why did you choose jazz? Well, it's the natural thing. We've got the Black British Jazz, and those guys are doing really good, and those other organisations are doing really good, just because they keep up there, they practice, they pick up their instruments, they keep trying. That's what you've got to do. If you've got an instrument, practice. If you've got a thing, keep writing and keep putting those applications in, because you'll get it in the end.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. All the very best for the festival. And we really hope it goes on and on for many, many, many editions to come. And before you go, Clive, would you sing us 2 lines of jazz, please?
Let's
finish on a high punch.
Summertime and the women, it's easy. Catfish are jumping and the cotton is high. I'll take myself down to the Royal Docks at the weekend, 'cause Mama and Papa, they won't cry.
Yay,
That's
that's
Sicilian.
brilliant. Thank you so much. All the best, and it was a real
That's
pleasure.
all right.
Bye. Take care.
Right,
and I'll see you at the festival.
So thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Goodbye.